All right, so wrapping in again today. We had a little bit of technical difficulty in the studio today. Hopefully you guys are catching this after the effect that happened. We're going to dive into Solana today, but also take a look a little bit about the markets. We'll take a look at Bitcoin, all that good stuff. My name is Paul Barron. Welcome back into TechPath. Let's go over into where Solana is heading. Before we get started, let's talk about our sponsor, and that is iTrust Capital. Make sure and check them out. If you're looking at getting ready for, because you can still do this, getting ready for doing your taxes for last year, you can actually still take advantage of the IRA guidelines. So there's a couple of things you can do, and that is jump into a ton of assets. They've really done a great job in terms of adding just a tremendous amount of assets, so go check them out. There's a couple of things that you can do with iTrust. You can bring in your current IRA, or you can start a new one. One thing you also can do is you can get a $100 funding reward by just starting an IRA with them. So make sure and use our link down below, and it does help the channel out. All right, so let's get into a couple of topics here. Now let's talk about Solana. Solana, of course, as you guys know, there's a multitude of products and projects that are riding on Solana. Helium is one that we've reported on this network for quite a while. Their network officially migrates over to Solana on March 27th, so just about a month away. And this is going to mean that you've got the Helium wallet app that's coming over, plus you've got kind of this whole transition of how hotspots is essentially going to run, as well as the IoT side of the network for Helium. So pretty cool stuff. A couple of tweets they had in here. The governance primitives like Realm DAOs, smart contract ecosystem will be coming in. We've got greater scale, transaction speed, network reliability. All this is going to happen when this merge, so it's called, occurs at the end of March. So I think once that does start to crank it, it could show very, very well for Solana, because I think we'll start to see some aspects of growth. Solana nears double-digit growth, and of course some of it's been toward Helium. I still think there's some other reasons Solana is flying, but I would agree. I think this is one of the bigger ones out there. And remember that this is one that had hit the low of $8. We actually had Tim Warren on when we were looking at this at the end of December, and we kind of looked at it. Maybe this is where Solana's correction begins. Some of the things that many people think behind this is Helium. Additionally, this merge, obviously, as I said, but the other aspect is this whole idea around the TPS on the ecosystem for Solana. This is going to be a big critical measurement for Helium, because Helium obviously moving into the 5G space, and the potential of having their partnership with T-Mobile and all that tied into, now we're seeing real use case on the Solana network. So this will be a really good test, I think, to see if it's going to take off to the level that we think it might take off. There is still a lot of devs going out there. This was 5,000 people signed up for the Solana Grizzly-thon. That's pretty impressive, which was, if you look at, they were saying it's 66 times more than 75 devs working on Solana today, which means there's a lot of interest in it. And that, to me, is still a very positive sign for a blockchain, when you have devs that are out there just absolutely crunching and trying to get into a project. Other areas that you always look at on projects is there money going into some of the dApps and some of the developers? Here's Sequoia, which is one of the bigger ones. Multicoin, I'm not a big fan of those guys, but Multicoin co-led a $6 million funding round for a payment startup called TipLink. Now, small amount. The point is that this is a payment startup, good thing, very small unknown. That to me is the more scenario that you should be watching, because they are putting money into these early blue sky stage projects out there. So always a good sign for any kind of tech as it goes into that direction. The other area that is very positive for Solana right now is NFTs. Royalties now went to 0 on Sol's main NFT marketplace, Magic Eden. This again was before OpenSea. And there's a bit happening within the entire ecosystem of how NFTs are going. So a lot could still be very unstable with how we see marketplaces roll out. And there's a lot of enterprise initiation starting to happen in big tech, and also Web 2. We just talked about eBay, the potential of what Amazon might be doing with NFTs. So things could shake up pretty quickly in the NFT space. So that's one area to kind of keep a very close eye on. Now, many people think that it was BONK that rescued Solana for the price correction, which it pulled off that, that $8 bottom. I don't know. I'm still in the belief that there was just a point of no return for Solana, and that there were a lot of bulls that essentially said this is pretty much the floor, and we're gonna continue to support it. Other aspects is Phantom still doing a ton of work, and right now they're going through a whole huge batch of invites now on their wait list. So I think that's a good thing of being able to see some new tool sets within Phantom. So another big advantage. Audius, this is another project. Again, we've talked about Audius here. It's in the CPI, continues to see some good movement, and a little bit, this month, not bad. But if you look at all time, you can kind of see the growth of where Audius has really significantly and continuously grown. I think this is one of the sleepers in the Solana camp in terms of potential projects that really see a pretty significant growth in this next bull run. The other one, of course, you hear us talking about all the time is Render. Now, Render, as you guys know, is still a long-term play, but the kind of deals they're making with Apple, obviously around the Octane X, but the bigger play here for Render is the evolution of creating the Web3 environment in a concept in which we're going to see a lot of digital assets that are obviously going to need the kind of tool sets for Render. So that one is still a long term. And again, run on Solana. STEPN, if you're into, kind of the exercise to earn, play to earn, step to earn kind of concept. I'm not a big fan. STEPN is in our CPI, but this is, again, another one that starts to create a lot of transactions. And again, more transactions, more network health, and more benefits for the overall ecosystem. So all of that plays into a very positive aspect. Hivemapper is a project that we showcased here back prior to Breakpoint, which I really like, because this is kind of the evolution of what could be Uber for blockchain. And what they're trying to do is really kind of get into making this a much more usable app and start to tie into other types of tool sets. So we're talking about here, Hivemapper will build a full suite of map API data products that now businesses can use within their products. So this is something we've seen in the Web 2 space with Apple Maps and Google Maps. Can Hivemapper maybe be the Web 3 of that? That'll be the big question. Further into that, I kind of just want to wrap up here on this resistance, the resistance level, and kind of this long-term sentiment on Solana. I'll show you some sentiment data here in a second. But if you look at one of the statements, market bears are kind of in charge at the moment. However, chances do look pretty good that this may not last that long, because it is primed potentially for growth. And again, does Solana get back up to 250? I just don't know if I would put it in that camp. But can it be a nice 3, 4, 5, 10x for your portfolio? That's a question you kind of have to answer if you believe and like what you see in the Solana ecosystem. Let me jump over to this last piece right here, which I think is good for Solana, or also for the entire market, is that there's more chatter now on Grayscale potentially to become the true first proper spot Bitcoin ETF. If this occurs, in my opinion, that will be one of the catalysts that would start to bring a lot of the market, including the traditional markets, into crypto. I think have a deafening effect on some of the traditional markets just from Wall Street in general, just because of the cycle of what we're seeing in the millennial and the Zoomers and why they're and what they're looking at for investing. All right, so let's jump into the sentiment chart real quick, and I'll zoom up on that just a little bit for you guys. But you can kind of see this move right here. Obviously back here, 130, this was when Solana really started showing some signs that we might see a little bit of a move in place. Now, one thing to consider is it is not performing above the overall market. It's still an altcoin, a layer one, that is under the overall market. So I think this has a lot of upside for where the future could be. on Solana, and it continuously is showing this. And if you just go into, and we'll take a look at, let's take a look at the chart real quick. All right, so if you look at Solana on the chart in comparison, you can kind of see this is that, obviously, the big drop back here we saw in late year, and then right there into December, this was the $8 position, and then we saw this little bit of sideways, and then another almost 30% move right here. That's a lot of what we've seen right here. This is that 30% move coming from 2.9 to 2.20 over the past month. So is it and can it hold out as to where it is right now on positive? At least the trends are up. They are sliding with the current market. Obviously, Bitcoin holding at 25. So anyway, let's take a look. We did a quick poll for you guys on this one as well. Let's take a look at what the poll had to say. Did Solana bottom at $8? Pretty much everybody is saying the same thing. Yes, it did. All right, if you guys are a big Solana investor, drop some comments down below. We'd love to know. And if there's a project that you're following on Solana that you really like outside, the natural ones, whether it's Render or you look at what's happening with Audius or Magic Eden, what are the ones you guys like that you think are the up and coming projects that could really break out maybe in this next bull run? If you guys are not part of the Diamond Circle, make sure and jump in. Join our Substack. That's where all the content is now, where we share everything from CPI analysis, a lot of our blogs, additional podcasts. Kyle and I do a podcast over there. It's free for you guys. Just click the link down below. You'll be able to join right there. If you guys want to reach me, it is out there on Twitter, @Paul Barron. We'll catch you next time right here on TechBath.